Greetings to you all. I'm Doreen from Everything Mentor. Today we are talking about a very important aspect at a workplace, and that is communication. Communication comes from a Latin word called communicare, and it involves a process where people transmit information from one person to the other, but also sharing messages that are both verbal or non-verbal, and this information should create sense to both the sender and the receiver. Communication is an important aspect at a workplace because it helps improve productivity, it helps create relationships, it also helps in meeting the objectives or the goals of a workplace. And once it's done in the right way, it makes a workspace very favorable to work in. And if it's not done in the right way, then it creates hiccups in everyday living. Here with me is my co-host,
Alan Sanyu, Everything Mentor. Yes, so today as we talk about communication, we know that we have non-verbal cues and verbal cues of communication.
Yes.
That even when someone is just silent, they are communicating something. Even when someone is, even the facial expression is communicating, the eye contact is communicating. Yes, so when we talk about the organization and communication cascades from the top. It starts from the top and cascades downwards. So we imagine their directors or the vision bearer who had this vision. It was communicated, came to fruition. Now we have employees, we have the employer and the employees. Expectations have got to be communicated, the KPIs have got to be communicated, but how this communication is passed on is not just about transmission of information. Communication carries so much, and it takes a heavy mental toll on the recipient, the person who is receiving the information, and also the person who is passing on the communicator who is passing on the communication. Yes, so imagine there's a meeting, and someone is just quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but they feel maybe they will not be heard, maybe their suggestions will be dismissive. Yes, so all this starts from the culture, I believe, the culture that has been set for the organization, for the employees. Is it safe enough to speak up? Is it safe enough to be heard? Is it safe enough to express themselves? And feedback is welcome in the organization or not? Yes, so
yeah, so like you mentioned, communication is both verbal, and I also mentioned it in the beginning that it's both, it can be verbal messages or non-verbal messages. And the important aspect of leadership being the pacemaker for communication in a workspace. You find that leadership styles also determine how we communicate. For example, if a leader is authoritarian, you will find that they are more assertive, they are more directive, they are more assertive. They push. For example, the messages are pushed towards the receiver. And if that's the
they are
culture,
more of instructions.
yes, if such a culture is adopted in a workspace, then you find that that's how things are done. But also there are aspects where someone is more supportive, is more democratic, is more supportive generally, and they pass on the information basing on putting the human aspect of people into consideration. And that way it's easier to give feedback, it's easier to question, not really to question in a bad way, but to ask, why is this and this supposed to be done this way, as opposed to when someone says, because I said so, you have to do this because I said so. So like you mentioned, I feel like leaders set the pace, their leadership style determines that, but also the culture is an important aspect. There's a saying that goes, culture eats strategy, like
for breakfast.
So culture will definitely erode everything else that is being done in a workspace, and it also cuts across when it comes to communication. So as we get into the workspace, the informal sector, the formal sector, we also have to put into consideration our leadership styles as people. Even as employees, what is your leadership style? How do you give feedback? How do you mention things that are not going right? How do you give feedback if someone is actually doing the right thing? Do you only keep quiet when things are going? Do you keep quiet when things are going wrong,
right.
going right, and then only mention when things are going wrong? That's also an aspect of communication. That are we only communicating the bad aspect in a workspace, and how does that leave someone feeling?
Yeah, the person feels unheard. The person feels like at the end of the day, whether I talk or not, it won't change anything. Yes, so it's very important to understand that as we are passing on this communication, we have to understand that behind the recipient is a human being, not a robot, not a machine. So they've got emotions at the end of the day. So as we transfer this communication, this information, be cordial enough, be respectful enough to know that this person has emotions, however bad the communication may be. Maybe it's about someone's performance, or this so and so this quarter has not been performing so well. But yes, maybe it's just a person going through a phase of life, going through some personal issues that have attributed to the bad performance at the workplace. Yes, so, but how we bring it up, for example, in a performance appraisal, and as the leader, you say, oh, I've noticed there's been a change in trend. Nowadays, you come a bit late at the workplace. Is there something that is going on at personally, at your personal level? How can I help? How can we do better together? How can I help you? How can I be of help? As opposed to you're a bad performer. I don't know what to do about you're a bad performer. I don't know what to do about you and your performance. At this rate, you might end up losing your job. Yes, so the person goes back and feels unappreciated, unheard. Then it will automatically tell in her productivity. They will get demoralized, and that will affect even the rest of the team. If, for example, this is the team player and this is probably maybe the manager, yes, there's maybe MD, and the MD is the one who has passed on the communication, then this manager will just have low zeal to work, will be literally be demotivated.
Yes, on top of how, I also feel like the aspect of where is very important. For example, if someone has done something wrong, or they have done something that does not meet the objective of the organization, it's not I feel like if you're going to put into consideration how the other person will react, it's not important to just bring it out, for example, in a staff meeting, without first calling the person on the side and explaining what went wrong, and having their version of the story, because communication should not be a one-way street. It should be a two-way street, that when I talk to you, I should expect feedback of why you did what you did. So for me, the aspect of where, and then the aspect of how you also deliver it, how you package it. There's my boss used to explain to me an aspect of how you can give feedback. You do a sandwich model, whereby you first talk about the nice thing that, okay, the good things that someone is doing, because humanly, from a human perspective, you also want to be appreciated in a way. So you talk about what they are doing right, and then you can package what they are not doing right, and then you end with what they are not, what they are still doing right, and what you expect to have from them. So I feel like the aspect of where, how you package it, how you present it to the person, and also giving them a listening ear. I feel like communication also should come with listening. Are you listening to the other person, or are you just imposing messages on on the person you're talking to? So you listen to them and hear their perspective and see whether it works, because no man is an island, and we work together. We all combine efforts in terms of wisdom, ideas, decisions, so that we make a workspace worth working in. So if you're only imposing your ideas without listening to the other person's ideas, then it ceases to be effective communication. It becomes more of a dictatorship, which might also have a mental toll on someone, which might affect their productivity, but also which might just affect how the organization performs.
True, I agree. Yes, so communication, how the mode of transmission of the communication, where and how is very important. How, I'll talk about the how. Yeah, so for example, someone may be trying to express themselves, and the other party who is listening in or trying to receive the communication goes expressive immediately and frowns the face, then the person will stop there.
Yeah, withdraws.
They will automatically withdraw, or it will even get violent. It can be violent on email, it can be violent on even emotionally, at an emotional level. So this creates a toxic working environment when this is not resolved or addressed early enough. So how we communicate, and we have to remember that different people appreciate to be addressed or communicated to differently. For example, one might appreciate it if they are communicated to in private. So if you're sharing, say, feedback or anything to do with them, giving them even instructions, even with other team players, for them they would appreciate it more when they are individually communicated to. So you understand that this one is like this. Then there are others who don't mind. They are happy-go-lucky, anytime, any day. So it's just communication. Oh, what did he say? We do this, that. Okay, we go, off we go. So how you communicate. So now, for example, if a subordinate received a message or an email from the leader or the immediate supervisor saying, let's please talk after the meeting.
I think that
they'll start thinking, what did I do wrong? What have I done? So emotionally it affects the person.
I think between the time of receiving that message and when the meeting actually happens, I'll definitely be under tension. Even when I've not done something wrong, you feel like, what are they going to tell me? Are they going to sack me? Are they going to... So I think communication, like you say, in that case, the supervisor had the responsibility of adding a few words. Let's talk about maybe yesterday's production, or let's talk about the report. So that there's some bit of clarity. And that brings me to the point of, as a sender or as someone communicating the initial message, there should be clarity. Otherwise, the other person is going to misinterpret what you're talking about. So if you leave a message, or if you leave a statement hanging, it's going to leave me...
You leave the conclusion for the other party.
You leave the other person to make assumptions. You leave them to just imagine what you meant after that statement. So I think an aspect of clarity is very important while passing on a message.
So that message should have read, let's talk about, say, the upcoming project. But when it's left unclear, let's meet after the meeting. Let's please meet after the meeting. Then, yesterday, what time did I come? I came late. Maybe it's about that.
You start imagining
so you start imagining a lot of things. So when communication is unclear, it creates confusion. It creates so much room for doubt, for self-doubt, that can affect one's confidence also. So
I also know that when communication is not clear, or when it has become a culture of just communicating just the bad ideas or the bad decisions that someone made. It also creates resentment between the employee and the employer, or the supervisor and someone else who's below them. So you find that already there's resentment in between the two parties, and that affects your everyday well-being. Every day you're coming to work, but you're like, oh my God, I dread I dread my supervisor, I dread that manager. So I think it's an important aspect in our everyday well-being, that we create good working relationships with what we say, with what we don't say, with how we show up, with even our facial expressions and body language. Because sometimes a lot is not said. Sometimes we just don't talk, but your body sells you out.
True.
They say if you want to know someone who is lying, always look at their eyes, because the
eye
eyes
contact,
don't lie.
yes.
That someone will talk about, will say something, and somehow their eyes are going to sell them. Or sometimes your facial expressions, your eyebrows, your whatever it is, like your body language sells you out.
True.
So that aspect should be put into consideration. But also as leaders of workspaces, even in the informal sector, where we have people that are semi-literate or that have not gone to school a lot, you find that you also have to consider the background of that individual. Where are they coming from? How has their background influenced how they behave, influenced how they express themselves? And if it has to come to putting up like communication training, then you have to do it, like building communication skills for your employees, so that there's a good working relationship, but also for you to enhance your communication skills as someone who sets the pace for the organization. So we also we are every day we are unlearning and relearning. So we should put into consideration learning the communication skills, the do's, the don'ts, the theories, how can we do better, and also creating platforms that are for feedback. For example, in hospitals or in organizations where they put up a suggestion box anonymously, so that someone can write about their boss without without fearing that they are going to be sacked. I need to have an opportunity. Or these days, even like the internet has made it easier. You can create a survey for someone, for employees to give you feedback.
Feedback survey.
The employee feedback survey, so that they give you feedback on how you behave. Because someone might know my handwriting in the suggestion box, but
Like
with the
so.
with the online feedback, it's anonymous. No one is attaching their phone number, their name, their emails, so that you sit back as a leader and be like, oh, I didn't know I was doing this at this point, particular moment, but there's always room for improvement.
That is true.
Yeah.
And in addition, I believe there's so much emotional intelligence that should be involved while communicating. Yes, as you're communicating, yes, all communication may not be in our favor.
Yes.
Not everyone who communicates will understand, oh, this one is emotional, or this one has so and so fears. You cannot say such. There are people, when you say a certain word, it triggers something in their, they switch off. Yes, so the people are not angels at the end of the day. This person may not know your background, but at the end of the day, we've got to have emotional intelligence while leading and working with others. Yes, so as we work with others, we've got to understand that we are all human beings coming from different backgrounds, coming from different homes, were raised differently. Yes, so how we communicate, we've got to be kind to one another, even when you feel you want to be heard, but it shouldn't be aggressive to the point that you're trying to offend the other party. Yes, so that's the point where someone may just withdraw, and you're asking yourself, why is this person no longer performing? But your mode of communication just made them switch off. And for them, yes, it's about just coming to work every day, but they can no longer be actively involved. Yes, so as leaders, we've got to be intelligent emotionally. Even the employees. Yes, you're in a meeting with your co-workers, you're in a meeting with your boss and other co-workers, and there's this suggestion that is not working in your favor,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're saying, oh, you're talking back at your boss in a very unbecoming manner or way. It's really uncalled for. That's where emotional intelligence kicks in, and you remember, you know what, at the end of the day, yes, it may not be in my favor, but how do I package this communication for the other party not to feel offended? So as we communicate, I think we've got to put so many aspects into consideration so that we are able to communicate better, so that expectations are met on the person who is receiving the communication and the person who is being communicated, who is passing on the communication.
Yeah, I also think that the aspect of having guidelines on how people interact and how they communicate towards each other. You see, in most cases, when you leave it blank, like this is an organization, but there's nothing that is guiding us in how we conduct meetings and how we express
Escalation
ourselves,
matrix, yeah.
or the repercussions of if I'm abused, for example, because that is part of communication. If someone verbally abuses me, how should I express myself? Where should I go? Who should I talk to? So as workspaces, we should also have structures and guidelines of how people should interact, and if something goes wrong, then what is it that the organization or the company is going to do in that regard. And I feel like that also puts order in a workspace where people are not just talking about things the way they want to, attacking people, you know, being disrespectful.
Also
because
reduces
yes,
grapevine at the
yes,
workspace.
and at the end of the day, you have to there has to be an aspect of respect in every communication arrangement. There has to be respect, there has to be mutual understanding, and if you don't understand something, then you seek clarity from the person without offending them, without attacking them, without shaming them, because we've seen scenarios where you don't agree at work and someone goes and probably attacks you in your private life,
True.
or they start talking about you maybe on social media, or they start attacking you
They start a
privately.
vendetta on you.
Yes, and then they make your life uncomfortable, especially in institutions, maybe when it's where there's like a lot of toxicity. So there should be structures to protect people from people who are aggressive, who are abusive, who don't value people's efforts, but also who are generally ill-mannered, because in society there's all kinds of people.
True, I agree. Yes, so as we are communicating, we've got to be very clear with the communication that we are making. We've got to be empathetic while communicating. We've got to be emotionally intelligent while communicating, and we should know when, how, and where to pass on the communication. This will help us to pass on the information very clearly and avoid workplace toxicity. Yes.
Because communication is an important aspect in a workplace, it is important that we create different avenues where people can freely express themselves. For those of us, and some of these avenues can be outside the workplace. For example, it can be a counselor who the organization has hired, or it can be a therapist, it can be someone else also outside of the workspace, to create a safe space for those for the employees to express themselves, to share ideas, and to talk about what is going on where they work from.
When we communicate empathetically and respectfully, workplaces become more supportive, they become more productive, and they become more human. Yes, so let's work better in our workplaces going forward. We hope the topic of communication resonated so well with you. And if it did, please share with your co-workers, with your colleagues, with your bosses. And don't forget to follow us on all our pages. I've been Alan.
Doreen.
From Everything Mental.
Bye-bye.
Bye.